Welcome, Lane.
Thank you
so much for joining us this afternoon. Can you take us back to when you made the decision to make surfing your life? Was it a conscious decision, and what drove it?
I remember the day that I chose that I wanted to become a world champion. And yes, I had a lot of ambition. The moment that it actually occurred was when I was 8 years old. And to give you a bit of a background story, I was adopted at birth into a beach-loving family with the last name Beachley, became a pro surfer, or a very fortunate twist of fate. But when my dad sat me down as an 8-year-old and told me I was adopted, that moment had a profound impact on me. For anyone in this room that's ever experienced adoption on any level, from my own personal account, I felt at that particular moment, I felt rejected, I felt worthless, I felt unloved. I thought, well, hang on, if I'm not deserving of my own mother's love, like if my own mother has given me away, then whose love am I worthy of? And it's at that moment when we experience that level of setback or disappointment or adversity or challenge that you have a choice. You have a choice to make. You can either become a victim of circumstance or you can become a master of your destiny. And I decided at that particular point in time, well, I know if I become a world champion, everyone will love me. And we know that it doesn't happen like that, but that was particularly the moment where I decided, hang on, if I become a world champion, then that actually will make me worthy of love. I wasn't motivated to succeed, to get a bunch of trophies and be the best surfer in the world so the world could give me a whole lot of reward and accolade. I did it to actually prove to the world that I was deserving of love. And if you can identify what your driving forces are, if you can identify what your intrinsic values are, your own personal values are, then you can actually utilize them to create that good, to fuel your sense of purpose. And actually that's the motivation that gets you up in the morning and go to work, even on the days when you don't feel like going to work. And even as a professional surfer, where my bikini was my uniform, makeup was sunscreen, and the ocean was my office, it looks like the most ideal, wonderful opportunity to do that. But there was days when I just did not feel like going surfing. And the great thing about being a surfer is we embrace change every day. We embrace change because it's a necessary part of our evolution as a surfer. The great thing about being a surfer is you never master it, and you have to adapt and you have to change course. You know, you might take off on a wave with a very clear plan of what it is that you want to do and how you're going to approach this wave, then all of a sudden a section will appear in front of you and you have to change your way of thinking very quickly. So you have to have a very adaptable mindset. You have to be very decisive, you have to be very quick thinking, and you have to be willing to accept that the course that you were going to take is not actually going to work out, and change course very quickly. I love to win, I love to succeed, but what drives that was my willingness to improve, my willingness to constantly step outside of my comfort zone and grow as a human being. So when I won my first world title, I celebrated and recognised it, but then I thought, okay, well next year when I come back, I'm going to have to start all over again. And it's a matter of celebrating, recognising, and then going, okay, what am I going to do differently this year that's going to give me that edge? The one thing that stopped me from winning my first world title, which took me 8 years to achieve, was distractions. And they are the #1 threat to a productive future. I was so distracted by about all the noise. I was so distracted about what my competitors were doing and trying to find a way to do it better. And also the advantage we have as being athletes is that we're constantly eliciting feedback. We want constructive criticism. We want to draw as much attention to our weaknesses as fast as we possibly can to turn them into our strengths, because the mistakes we make in business is we spend all of our time focusing on our strengths and they ultimately become our weakness. So when I won my first world title, I knew what my strengths were, but I also knew what my weaknesses were. I kept an eye on what my competition were doing, but I never compared myself to them, because comparison leads to a sense of inadequacy. And the more you compare yourself, the less you're focusing on what your strengths are and what you need to do to get the best out of yourself. What do you need to do to improve yourself? What does your business need to make it that little bit better? Because the three things that affect the quality of your life are the quality of people you hang out with, the quality of questions you ask, and the quality of the decision or the choice that you make based on the knowledge that you have. And so I surrounded myself with people that believed in me more than I did. And then I made sure that if I was having a bad day, that I shared those challenges with people that wouldn't put me down and say, ha, suck it, lose. But people that go, okay, how can I help you? How can I pick you up and learn from you and also make sure that you achieve your goals?
What role did fear have in your career?
Fear has had a monumental role throughout my career, and I think a lot of us actually fear fear itself. But if you can actually admit, I'm afraid at this particular moment. Surfing has actually taught me a lot of very valuable life lessons, and I know when I've gone into business and I haven't maintained connection with those lessons, that's when I've made the biggest mistakes.